Hi, I'm Barbara Seelig-Brown. Welcome to Stress-Free Cooking. What I want you to do is put on your bunny slippers, pour a glass of wine, and cook a great meal with me. Before we leave Javits, one of the most important things that we need to do are talk about two terrific cheeses from the Veneto, Piave and Asiago. So I have two experts with me. Welcome, Nizio.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Nizio Paganin, for telling me about Asiago, because Nizio is actually from Asiago, so that makes this very special.
In the mountain, we have only grass in the summertime and springtime, and the only thing we can do there in agriculture is milk, cows and milk. And for a long, long time, we started and we do this kind of cheese in two different ways: the aged Asiago and the fresh Asiago. They are completely different.
They are completely different. One is softer and has a few more eyes, yes?
Yeah, the fresh one is the most famous, the most popular in Italy, and is made by whole milk, and the weight is about 30 pounds per wheel.
Per wheel, it's about 30 pounds. Wow,
yes.
that's a big wheel.
That's a big wheel. This is a quarter. This is a quarter.
So this is 1/4, so that would make this at about 7.5 pounds.
Yes. And it has about 30 days. It's a fresh one.
Mm-hmm.
It's a very easy. We may use in many ways, such on the pizza, on sandwiches, by itself. And
Yes.
it's very sweet and an easy taste.
It's a good table cheese.
Absolutely.
Well, the fresh one is creamier, and this one is harder because it's aged, Stravecchio.
You are an expert.
I love my Asiago. So thank you so much. I'm glad that we got to talk about Asiago.
Thank you very much.
And my other guest is Chiara, and I need you to pronounce your name for me, Chiara.
Brandalice.
Oh, that's so beautiful. And Chiara is our Piave expert. So Chiara, now let's hear a little bit about Piave.
And why this cheese is so beautiful, so particular, is because of the milk. The milk we collect to produce this DOP cheese, PDO, so protected denomination of the
So it
region.
has to meet the requirements of the area.
Sure. It means that we can collect the milk only in a specific area, and this area is called Belluno area. It's a county, a very tiny one, in the mountainous part of the Dolomites. So the milk is very rich in protein, vitamin, and so this is the secret,
Yes.
the real secret of this cheese.
Well, I've been a fan of Piave for many years, and I love it as a table cheese. I also do like to grate it on some of my finished dishes, and I like to make a pasta dish representative of the North when I'm using the Piave as a grating cheese. I'd like to thank my guests very much for joining me today, and also I hope you'll join me back in my kitchen. Thanks for joining me back in my kitchen. And here I have my good friend, Lou Palo. Welcome, Lou.
Barbara, it's great to be here.
Lou is one of the country's foremost cheese authorities. He has a wonderful shop in Little Italy, New York, called Palo Fine Foods at the corner of Mott and Grand. And Lou, everywhere I go, I hear people talking about you and all of your expertise in the area of cheese.
Well, Barbara, I made it my life's work to represent the 20 regions of Italy through the foods, and especially the cheeses of Italy. You know, we go back over 100 years in New York City's Little Italy, and we're proud to say that we truly are a true representation of Italy through the food.
And you are, because if you've seen my show in past seasons, you know that I visited Lou's store, and it really is a treasure trove of wonderful Italian specialty products, from cheese to salumi, prosciutto, pastas, condimenti. I mean, it's a great, great fun place to visit. We have some special cheeses here. They are the mountain cheeses from the Veneto.
From the Veneto. You know, I mentioned before, Italy is comprised of 20 regions. The Veneto is in the northeastern part of Italy. It's surrounded by these most beautiful, beautiful mountains. The Dolomite Mountains come to mind right away. And it's one of the most beautiful parts. That very lush green mountain valleys and plains are so indicative of good cow's milk. And even goat's milk too. They have
Yes.
some wonderful goat's milk up there as well. But today I brought 3 cheeses from the Veneto and all cow's milk. Historic cheeses. The Grana Padano, I know you've spoken about Grana Padano before.
Italy's favorite table cheese,
but
right?
it's table cheese. It's also good for grating and it's good for appetizers, aperitif. But let me just show you something about this particular Grana Padano. Of course, you know it's got to have the logo all
Yes.
around it to be authentic Grana Padano. But if you look at that beautiful grainy texture.
I know, it's gorgeous.
Grana, grainy.
Grainy.
It has a couple of meanings why it's called Grana, but one of them is because it's a grainy cheese. And if you look close, you see little white specks in it. That's the separation of fat and protein. We call it tyrosine. It's protein development, little crystals. People often say it's salt, but it's not.
It's not salt.
It's protein, and that's what you want to see in a good
And it
aged
gives a
piece.
nice crunch.
Right, and it's wonderful as an appetizer,
Yes.
as an aperitif. Before even going to your antipasti, you'd have it with a bottle of, say, Prosecco, which is also from the Veneto.
One of my favorite
a
wines.
sparkling wine. So, we often like to serve Grana Padano in its characteristic crunchy quality. Rather than slice it,
So we
you
take
want- you
something
wanna
with a
take it-
point,
Right.
this cheese
And-
spade that I got
That's right.
in Italy.
And you'd want to break it up. Go ahead, Barbara, you do that.
Okay.
Just put it in and bend it forward.
Okay, I can
And
do
you see
that.
those beautiful pieces that come off? They look almost like you're cracking a piece of marble.
It's true.
know?
That really is true. Beautiful.
And you'd want to have it served
Quite so
like
big.
this so you could get the full characteristic. This cheese will open up in your mouth with excitement
And I have
from the crystals.
served this to many of my friends who are always so surprised at how delicious it is, and then they tell me it becomes one of their favorites.
Oh, Grana Padano is often, it's Italy's #1 selling cheese. It's got to be the favorite of many people.
Right, right.
Many people.
So
And
now this one's extra special, yes?
well, it's what we call a reserva, which means that it's aged minimum of 20 months. Grana Padano, you could get it 3 different ages. You can get it aged from 12 months, which is a softer textured cheese, very good for shaving, melting, if you'd like. Or you could get it for 16 to 18 months, which is really the traditional age that they age Grana Padano.
So the average or traditional is
And then
16 to 18.
18 months. And then when you get a special wheel, the right size, the right texture, and it's selected wheels that they can age for a minimum of 20 months up to 30, usually 20 to 24 months.
And that's
This
the
is-
really special
this one-
reserva.
that's
Just
right.
like wine, where they hold
Right.
wine back a little
That's
bit,
right.
certain bottles of wine. Now, something else that I'd like you to explain, and I've explained this before, but
Yes.
I know you're going to do a more eloquent job of this. Tell me about the rind. People think it's wax, but it's not wax.
No, this cheese is a natural rind. Natural rind meaning they don't add anything to it. After the cheese is made, it's submerged in a solution of salt water. The salt, it's kept there for a couple of weeks, then it's taken out and allowed to dry. And the rind develops, and it's constantly monitored. So they'll clean the rind on a period of every week to 10 days, constantly wiping it down. And you could see the brand on it. Okay, they'll keep rubbing it, but the brand will remain. Okay, and then when you're using your cheese and you have this rind, some people want to buy only the rind.
I love the rind.
And
I
I tell them, get the heart of the cheese as well. No, I just want the rind. And why do they want the rind? It's the best complement to your brodo, your
Yes.
soup.
You put it in your broth.
Right in your soup.
Yes.
I always recommend, since it's 2 years of aging in this particular cheese, to take a knife and scrape it a little bit just to clean it. Or you could even wash it a little bit just to get
Any little things.
anything that's
dust.
been, dust that's been accumulated over a period of 2 years.
But when I have an excess of these, because I use so much of this cheese, I put them in my freezer. And then when I'm making
When
a
you're
soup
ready?
or a sauce or a stew, I pull them out of my freezer. And the treat, I think, is when I serve the soup and I put a piece of the softened, cooked rind in the soup, and everybody gets to have that extra special treat.
The rind, it will stay better in the freezer because it will deteriorate just under normal refrigeration. So if you're going to keep it for an extended period of time,
Put it in the freezer.
It's not a bad idea.
You know what? Before we go on to the next cheese, could you talk to us about caring for the cheeses? Because if you buy a large piece of cheese for a party and you don't use it all, and now you're going to have it for a little while, how would you store that?
Storing cheese, first of all, these type of cheeses are living, all right? There's different categories of cheese. A processed cheese is something that's taken, a cheese that's made and then melted down, and they might add something else to it to keep the longevity of life. But in the case of a living cheese, it's constantly going to develop and age. And sometimes, at certain temperatures, mold starts to form. This is actually natural for a living cheese for mold to form. We don't want the mold to form because that's going to deteriorate the flavor. Is it harmful? Well, it depends on what kind of mold it is. If it's normal cheese mold, you could cut it right off, and you don't want to give it a chance to grow, because not only does it grow out this way, it grows down,
inside.
And then it starts to make the cheese taste
So
funny.
then you have to really remove a lot of cheese
Right.
to get rid of the mold.
So the first method is you should refrigerate a cut piece of cheese. Keep the temperature as cold as possible. I'm not an advocate of freezing it. However, you keep it as cold as possible and wrapped to stop the oxidation process.
Okay.
Now, this cheese now, oxygen is actually formed on this cheese right now, and it's starting to dry and starting to form the crust on the outside. This, you want to stop from happening. So what do? You wrap it in a good wrapped paper. Either you could use wax paper and then aluminum foil on top of that.
How about parchment paper?
Parchment paper, but then aluminum foil over
On
the
top?
parchment paper.
Okay.
Some people use a plastic wrap. A plastic wrap will be the best to keep it from oxidizing. However, you must change that plastic wrap frequently because that is going to give the cheese a stale taste if you have it too long. And I always recommend that every time you take the cheese out of the refrigerator, remove that wrapping.
And give it a new wrap.
And give it a new wrapping, because you don't know that, you don't see it, but little droplets of moisture form underneath the surface of the paper. From cold to warm, it's going to form condensation.
Right.
And then you don't want to add that to the cheese.
If you have a piece of cheese in the fridge that you haven't used in a couple of days, you should take it out and rewrap it anyway.
Yes, the rule of thumb for me is if you don't use a piece of cheese for a week, take it out, put a fresh piece of paper around
Okay,
it.
well,
If you
isn't
use
bad.
it 7 days in a week, put 7
Different
wraps around it.
Okay,
Okay.
great. Thank you. So what else do we have here?
Okay, the next cheese, another aged cheese that I brought, is called Piave Vecchio. Now, Piave is the name of this most beautiful river that stems from the Dolomite Mountains and funnels down into the Veneto. And the Piave River has a very big significance. It was the turning point in many cases of World War I, where they actually pushed back the Austrians. The Italians pushed back the Austrians. So it's a very significant river. This cheese is made right at the heart of in the Dolomites by the Piave River. So they give the honor of this cheese the name Piave, after
and this
the river.
is a wonderful cheese.
It's
I love
very special. And you know what makes this cheese very special? What makes it so special is the milk. This is milk from all free grazing mountain cows. I mean, these cows live in the mountains. There's a couple of hundred farmers that give the milk to this place that makes it, this Piave cheese. And the average farm is maybe 12 to 15 cows. A large farm might have 50 cows. But the milk is so wonderfully rich in flavor.
Because it's in such a lush area.
Mountain flowers and herbs. And when you taste this cheese, Barbara, you have to taste this cheese right now.
Oh, I
You're
can't
going
wait.
to taste, in my opinion, hazelnuts. The aroma of wonderful, smell that aroma?
Oh my God, this is so fresh.
Yes, but it's aged. And this one happens to be aged 18 months.
But you can taste the freshness from the
freshness
grasses.
of the grasses, right? Free grazing cows. Piave
That's wonderful.
is spectacular, spectacular cheese. This cheese too, I like to break off. Now, you know, it comes 4 different ages, Piave.
Does it really?
Yes. You can have fresco, which is aged only 30, 40 days. Then you can have Menzano. Menzano is aged for about up to 6 months. Vecchio, which is aged 8 to 12.
And vecchio means old.
Old, that's right. And Stravecchio, which
Very old.
this one is actually a Stravecchio.
Oh, okay.
And that one is aged 18 months to 2
This
years.
is amazing.
Okay, so now we have 2 aged cheeses. One very grainy, one very rich,
So we're-
creamy, and full of
We're
the mountain
thinking
flavors.
about textures now when we're
Right.
making our
That's right.
cheese plate.
I always like textures, different textures. And then finally, another historic cheese. This is called Asiago Pressato or Asiago Fresco. Asiago is a area in the northern Veneto, right on the border of Trentino and Veneto, and it's called the Piano di Asiago, the Asiago Plateau, where they also have free grazing mountain cows. And this is the fresh Asiago, aged only 20 to 30 days.
Oh.
You can get one called Asiago di Allevo, which is aged anywhere from 3 months to 2 years. But we already had 2 aged cheeses here. One a little bit
So we're
creamier.
going with the fresher.
That's right.
And this is even creamier yet
Yes,
because it's younger.
right. And I
Right.
use a different knife with this one here. And this I like to cut.
So now we're not chipping this away.
No,
we're-
this one here you would want to cut in pieces such as this here.
And that's soft. I can tell
Soft,
just by the
creamy.
way you're
Why don't
cutting
you taste
it.
a piece?
I did a lot of work with Asiago. I made quite a few recipes with this
Oh,
for their brochure.
This is a fantastic cheese to cook with.
This is amazing.
Fantastic. Well, one of my favorite cooking with Asiago is making what we call a fuso. And what is a fuso? Fuso in this area is like a fondue. They take the cheese, they add it in a skillet with some milk, and slowly on a low heat,
Stir it.
stir it until the cheese fuses together with the milk.
And so it's a liquidy.
Right, it's liquidy. Now, depends how liquid you want it. The more milk you put, the more liquid. The less
Right.
milk, the more cheesy.
So it's just cheese and milk.
That's it. And then you take it and you pour it over polenta,
Oh.
or you pour it over a bed of boiled potatoes.
Oh, that
and
sounds
then serve it.
wonderful.
It's unbelievable.
I
Unbelievable.
think it sounds great putting it over polenta as well.
Now, we have 3 cheeses.
So
but-
we have 3 textures, 3 hardnesses.
Right, and all mountain cheeses. Now, one more thing we have to add to this plate. I see this beautiful plate here is a plate with a lot of fruits on it, but we're going to serve it with a different kind of fruit.
Oh,
We're gonna-
nice.
We're going to serve it with a fruit called fruited mustard, called mostarda.
Mostarda.
And this is very famous in the area of the Veneto and parts of Lombardia, in the Mantova area. Mostarda is nothing but a spicy and sweet
So
mustard
like
fruit.
agrodolce. Sweet and
agrodolce.
sour?
Well, it's not sour, it's spicy.
Okay.
Because it actually has mustard seed in there. And,
Oh, okay.
And maybe a little bit of horseradish too.
Oh,
you know,
wow,
what
look at
depends
that.
on. So these are different fruits. So you can have it in chunks, fruited pieces like this. Here's a peach, there's an apricot, some cherries. This one is a fig.
So
Right.
would you serve that with one of these cheeses in particular?
With all these cheeses it goes.
Okay.
Or this is in solid pieces of fruit, or you could have what we call a minced amount of mostarda. You see here?
Oh, that's so
Yeah,
it's
this is
a mostarda.
It's what we call a sauce. It's a mostarda sauce, and this happens to be the
Fig?
The fig.
So
okay?
this would be the spicy, as sweet and spicy as
Right,
well.
and if you want to serve it if you want to serve it in one piece and let people slice it off and have it together, that's one texture, and you have also the texture of it being a sauce. And then finally, if you want to serve cheese with something sweet,
So maybe after dinner.
after dinner, sometimes we serve it with some amarena cherries, black cherries.
These are amazing.
And this is your cheese platter from the Veneto, traditional.
Beautiful.
Okay.
That is gorgeous. I'm just going to try the grana with the fig mostarda.
Okay.
Oh,
All right.
oh my God, that's so
It's-
wonderful.
It's so simple and so special.
Absolutely delicious. Thank you, Lou. Now, because we're a cooking show,
Okay.
maybe we're going to do a little cooking. And what I like to do is I like to make what I refer to as Italian macaroni and cheese. Everyone loves macaroni and cheese. Since I love my Italian cheeses so much, What I do is I take my favorite cheeses, I put them in my food processor and shred them, and then I make macaroni and cheese using those. So let's just do a little really quick. Come on over here with
Okay.
me. Okay. And what we're going to do is we're going to do basic macaroni and cheese. We're going to start with a little bit of butter, and I'm going to melt the butter. And we're going to make a roux, classic roux with butter and flour. So when we start the macaroni and cheese, we want to make a roux. So we have melted butter, unsalted butter. I'm going to add a little bit of flour. And then this will make the thickener for the macaroni and cheese. Okay. So a little bit of flour, and it's important to cook the flour for a couple of minutes. So oftentimes when I have leftover cheeses, I put them in the food processor and I shred them and then I freeze them. And I just call it my Italian cheese blend. And when I need a little bit of cheese for something, I just reach into the freezer and grab a little bit of that. And since I always buy my cheese from you, I know it's always good cheese, so I don't worry. So, all right.
I often recommend if they grate the cheese and keep it for a long period of time, keep it in the freezer.
Keep it in the freezer.
When you take it out of the freezer, though, however, either use it all or don't put it back.
Right, so just take enough out that you're going to use.
You're going to use for the day. That's
Yep.
right.
And then I'm going to add some low-fat milk to this. Okay. And actually, I'm going to let you take this. All right. And if you would just pour a little milk in there for me as I'm whisking.
Okay.
I'll get you involved.
All right.
Okay. Keep going. Okay. And I want to keep whisking constantly. Good. That's good. Want to keep whisking constantly while Lou is pouring the milk so that I don't get any lumps in my cheese sauce. Okay. So we're going to cook this a couple of minutes. When it starts to thicken up, then I'll decide if I need any more milk. So Lou, our sauce is a great consistency here. You want it to coat the back of a spoon, which this does.
Right.
Okay. So we're going to add some of those beautiful cheeses, the Piave, the Asiago, and the Grana. And we are going to create our Italian macaroni and cheese. So I'm going to make sure that this is nice and smooth. And I put these cheeses in the food processor with the shredding disc so that they have, they're well shredded, but they're not fine. They're not real grainy.
Okay. It's all the same texture.
It's all the same texture. Good point. Okay, so I'll add the rest of this cheese. And my cheeses have some salt in them. So I don't necessarily need to add any salt to this until I taste it because I want to see just how much salt my cheeses had. And then we're just going to toss this with some cooked pasta. And I have a mezze rigatoni that I've cooked already. So the beauty of this is you can even do this with leftover unsauced pasta, which I love cooking double of things and then reusing them again. Let me taste this and see. Look at that. I don't think it needs any salt. Okay. Would you pour?
Absolutely.
And we're just gonna mix this in. Perfect, thank you. Okay. And you wanna use a high quality pasta also. You know, when I see people in grocery stores and they pick up packages of things without looking at them, they don't pay attention to what they're picking up, it makes me crazy. Okay, so we're gonna mix this well. And then we're gonna turn this into a baking dish. And I love this dish. It's nice and sunny like you see in Italy. And we're gonna turn this into that baking dish. Okay, just the right amount. Okay, now we could enjoy this now, but even better, I like to bake this in the oven about 350 for about 30 minutes and get that nice cheesy crust on top.
Very nice.
Lou, I can't thank you enough for being my guest on Stress Free Cooking yet again. It's always a great show when you're on.
Well, thank you. It's a great pleasure for me to be here, always with you, Barbara. Thank you.
And thank you for joining Lou and I today on Stress Free Cooking. I hope to see you again soon.